Hiya, friends and neighbors. This is your old pal Eshkalar, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about not only matters spiritual and mythical, but also matters genuinely historical. And I'm going to conflate these things into a single thesis. Am I cool or what? Just ask me, I'll tell you. So, today I'm going to talk about King Arthur. In the first place, there is zero evidence that King Arthur ever existed. Everything about King Arthur is stories thrice told. There are no legitimate historical records that refer to any King Arthur in England in the times in question. Those times in question being somewhere around 0 to 500 of the Common Era. The last Roman legion pulled out of Great Britain in 405 or something. AD, CE. So, and there are records for that. But what there aren't records for is any king named Arthur. At that time, about the time that the Romans left England, which would be the only time really that you could have this tradition happen, England was divided into 5 different kingdoms. Each of these kingdoms had a ruler, and they would sometimes, so the story goes, get together. And when they did to fight the Vikings, or to fight the Saxons, or whoever was invading them, when they gathered according to their desire to avoid existential threat, they would select one man to lead them, the Bretwald. And the long-held theory is that this Arthur person was one of these Bretwalds that for a short period led the combined groups of Mercia and Wales and all these different kingdoms at the time in common battle against common enemies. There is absolutely no historical record that this Arthur ever existed. I just need to tell you that because you're going to go on thinking, oh, no, I saw a Disney movie with an owl and a bird and a fish. Everybody's trying to mate with the kid. Kind of like Japanese anime today. So, harem anime. Except with furries. Disney started that. It wasn't my fault. Well, The Wind in the Willows started that. And Winnie the Pooh. Good old A.A. Milne, who was a parodist working for Punch before he wrote those books. He hated Winston Churchill, and yes, Winnie the Pooh is Winston Churchill, the poop. You guys don't. And he was always stupid and fumbling and getting into trouble. Stuff people should know. So anyway, I want to talk about this Arthur Bretwald of England. Never existed. There was no such person. Now let's move on to what we might have that does have real historical context. Camelot. The center of his court, his gleaming kingdom, right? His Knights of the Round Table. Let's not go there. It's a silly place. Did anybody get that what Monty Python did there was the Dance of the Night by Prokofiev? The Dance of the Knights? So anyway, there was a Camelot. Well, there was a large castle town, but the castles weren't made the same way in those days. They weren't making castles out of stone till much later. No, this castle was made out of wood. And here's how they did it. And here's how it was different from the ones that were being built everywhere else. You got this thing in England, it's called Stonehenge. And everybody's got an opinion. Oh, it's this, it's that, it's this. We're worshiping the first, the equinox. Man is saying, oh, Göbekli Tepe is so cool, so I'm going to build it. I got bored, let's go drink it. It is Camelot, home of King Arthur's court, with knights that were chosen by God to do the dumbest shit. God wouldn't choose them for that. Come on now. So anyway, and all the stories are full of jokes and puns that none of us get anymore because we don't live in the times. The scissors bridge that chopped people in half. A scissors bridge is just a bridge on a pole that can be swung out so that the enemy can't cross the moat. in Mallory, it's like, oh, it's a scissors bridge. It cuts the knights in half. It's all Excalibur, the name of the sword. All it means is beyond measure. Excalibur, beyond measure, outside of measure. So these are just literary gaffes that were made to entertain people. And you choose a mythical king in a faraway land. Well, if you're French, guess what? England's a faraway land. You can make the people have horns in their heads and run around with a slime for their leader. Whatever you want. So you have a one-eyed god named Balor. They gotta haul his eye open so he can see what those go. Oh, don't let me look in the mirror again. So, but here's the story of Camelot. The Celts, which were known subsequently, had a system of building what I will call a large house. It is analogous to the Norse longhouse, which is the center of civilization in that area. And at the large house, as with the longhouse, you would gather and hear proclamations from your ruler, probably give taxes, and also eat and drink and be merry and party like crazy. Women raising their arms over their heads to the music, and pheromones get exchanged and babies get made. This is how it works for the human race. That's why we're different from all the other apes and monkeys, is because we use music and alcohol to mate. If you don't agree, you don't have to, but I wouldn't go to any club if I were you, because you will have your beliefs dashed to the ground in pieces, and you will be saying, thank you, Eshkalar, for being kind about this. Because I am. So, the Celts would build their large house as a cone, and you would do that by creating a series of lintels, 2 uprights and a crosspiece. That's called a lintel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not done yet. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And you would then lean logs up against those lintels. That's support there. Keep it from bowing. And you would leave a smoke hole at the top. There is your Celtic large house. Calling it a castle is inappropriate because I'm not sure if it was used in a military fashion or not, perhaps. I wasn't there. This is all I get from other people. And if you read the literature, some of this will come to you as well. Don't believe science influencers or history influencers. Do your own research. Yeah, I know, Eshkalar, this is boring as hell. Don't I know? I'm an icon of chaos, dang it, and I have to read books. If it's all law, it's like, I'm getting poisoned. My eyes, my beautiful, so. But then they would build a circle of lintels, and they would lean long logs. In those days, well, they had what they called mast wood in many later days, where they would take the largest and tallest and straightest trees, and they would strip them bare and use them for masts in those giant sailing ships that the British are so famous for, and the French, and the Spanish. But those logs came from somewhere. Yes, there used to be vast forests that we have just destroyed, and a beautiful working ecology that we have just so mucked with that we have crashed it. In every place we go, humans are like that. We crash ecologies. It's our job. We're like elephants. We change the environment wherever we go. Yeah. It's like swimming through a cloud of whale poo in the ocean. What the heck? All the whales are like, ha, 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 ha. So, this series of stone uprights that we call Stonehenge was a series of lintels, 2 connecting circles of lintels. And that creates, when you put the poles against them, a double conical large house. A very large one. Large enough to rule all of England from, if you were so inclined and you had the men. And this, memories of this, ideas of this, long after the wood has rotted away or been repurposed, and some of the stone too, is what we call Camelot. So there was a giant castle in England, which was the center of government, but not for a mythical king or a Bretwalda who never existed, for a real ruler or a gathering place for real peoples, where they could either meet and solve their differences by, contests of skill or contests of poetry or stabbing each other, you know. It's a big deal. And this was the basic pattern of Celtic civilization. You would build this large house out of logs and lintels, and it's got smoke hole at the top. You could keep it warm in the winter, fairly warm in the winter. You know, you would cover it with skins or brush or whatever, clay, whatever you wanted to cover it with. I'm sure if we look around, we will find traces of those materials. We just haven't looked because everyone thinks it's some wonderful religion. Religion is the answer for everything terrible in the world, all the massacres, I know. Or read the Crusades. It was popes wanting property so that they could get more tithes. There was no God in any of that. There was men formulating doctrine, not God directing them, but men, greedy, small-minded men. That's what history is all about, not about great men, greedy, small-minded men that later on hired historians to make them seem great. So, wait, histories are written by those that have enough money to fund them. Tell me I'm wrong. So anyway, and that's the rich. So histories glorify the rich, make them out to be the important ones. King Arthur, not a real historical castle or a real historical large house that was the center of civilization. That's kind of boring. But, a mythical king had the right from God and some lady threw him the sword and all this stuff, it doesn't go together when you try to read it. Didn't happen. There was no such. But the building, there are the remnants right there. If you go to France and other places in Western Europe, you will find the pits where they built those, where they set those lintels and where they laid the logs against them. They know all about it. Their archaeologists understand this stuff. But apparently they and the English archaeologists never read their papers. I can't read in French. I cannot read in English, you pig, you know. Hey, German over here, shut up. You know, that's how it's always been with Germans. That's why they feel like they do. So, Camelot was not really Camelot, but it was a real large house for a Celtic style of administration. And that's where you'd have your granaries, that's where you'd have various goods stored, of course, because that was the source of your wealth. And that's where the center of civilization is, where the granaries are. Look at all the ancient cities in the Middle East, where the granaries are. I will tell you this in another video, that civilization is for the old. The young don't need it. It's the old people who need it. They need to know that, I can get a loaf of bread down the street. They don't want to be like, I got to go out and shoot your game today. No, I'm going to go get a loaf of bread, Dunkin' Donuts and coffee. You know, so that is the story. There was a real giant building that tradition has come down in a broken way to calling Camelot, and to which we have assigned a mythical king. But really it was a center of administration and civilization in post-Roman rule in Great Britain. Now, the building itself may have existed beforehand, because this is a common meme in human civilizations in the area. But the reason that we have these ruins is because here at least they did it in stone first. They made the circle of lintels out of hewn stones. And so that's why it's different from all the Celtic castles all throughout Western Europe. Celtic large houses, sorry. I say castle because it's so easy, not because it's accurate. But in this case, castle is almost an appropriate nomon because it had these stone lintels and then a large cone of beautiful logs. Wow, I wish we had that wood today, huh? There's a story about how England won the naval war against France, not by contesting on the high seas with cannon and wooden ships and iron men. No, by buying out all the mastwood from the French forest. And the rich were so greedy they didn't realize they were selling their future away. Not like today. This is your old pal Eshkalar for Mything Persons, giving you a little bit of factual truth as well as the usual mythological and spiritual information. Wow. If you think I'm cool, Well, you deserved it. You're cool. So I don't charge money for this stuff. Like everybody else on YouTube wants to charge money for whatever they're given. I don't have a product. Wisdom is not a product. Wisdom is a gift. This is your old pal Eshkalar, here in the magical city of Sharpsburg. That's right. Not like any other place on earth, let me tell you.